Have you ever explored the Library of Congress's photo collection? No? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to explore the collection and use it as part of your genealogy research. Hey guys, if we haven't met before, I'm Lisa with Are You My Cousin? And this YouTube channel is designed to help you find your ancestors, grow your family tree, but not be overwhelmed in the process. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, you're in the right place. Now, before we go any further, today's video is sponsored by Related Faces. It is a new on-the-scene genealogy tool designed to help you identify the ancestors in your old family photos. Now, I'm still on a mission to identify all of my unknown photographs, and I'm excited about Related Faces' use of AI, or artificial intelligence, to help start putting names to faces in those photographs. I simply upload a photograph to Related Faces, add a few details that I know, well, and if I don't know many, that's okay too. And then I sit back and wait for it to compare my photograph with all of the other photographs in their database, including photographs from the Library of Congress, to see if my photograph matches any other known photographs out there. Check it out for yourself with a free 14-day trial. I'll have a link in the description below. So let's talk a little bit more about the Library of Congress and that photo collection they have. It is a treasure trove of historical photos that will enrich your genealogy research and your family history storytelling like never before. So let's dive in and start unlocking some of the stories behind old family photographs. The Library of Congress does boast one of the world's largest historical photograph collections. It spans centuries of American history. It is a vast archive, and for us to access it, we simply go to the Library of Congress website, www.loc.gov, and navigate to the digital collections section. All right, so we are over here at the Library of Congress, their photo collection, and you can see that up here in the search bar. So loc.gov/photos/collections. And what this allows me to do is kind of give me a good overview of the collections here. So when I scroll down here, you can see the collections that have photos, prints, and drawings. Now, how I would use this from a genealogy standpoint, there's obviously a lot here, but not all of it certainly that we would use. So we can see some of their more popular collections here. But so, here's one for the African American photographs that from the 1900 Paris Exposition. This might be one I would look at if I wanted to look and compare styles and dresses and to see how they might compare to photographs that I might have in my closet that I potentially help to date some of the photographs I have based on the styles that the women are wearing. So that would be definitely a collection to look at. Coming further down, we see a variety of things. Some of them, obviously, I could use. Some of them I might have to explore a little bit. This one actually kind of caught my attention here with the baseball cards. So these are vintage baseball cards all the way back from 1887 to 1914. Now, what I found really interesting here and why it caught my attention is the fact that I actually have one or two baseball players, minor league baseball players back in the early 1900s in my family tree. Very collateral, but I thought this was really cool collection to go and search to see if I could find their baseball card. This is a great way to get children interested in family history when you can say, hey, we have a baseball player. For my son, that was a really interesting tidbit when he was little. And so to be able to learn a little bit more about the ancestor in the family tree who was a baseball player. So this was a really cool thing to be able to do. Here's a collection for cities and towns. And so this is another nice way where we can find some maps in cities and towns that we can look through to help benefit our research. And then, of course, here's another one. We have the daguerreotypes, which is a really nice collection here. They have 700. So I know that I have some daguerreotypes in my collection. So it was a way for me to learn about the daguerreotypes, see some that were in good condition so that I could compare and contrast mine to see if I could narrow down some dates a little bit more. I can also do searches. If I know a specific area that perhaps I want to research or a specific location, specific time period, I can actually do a search up here in the search bar. My ancestors are from South Boston, Halifax County, Virginia. So I could pop that into the search. I can click on that search bar and then I can go through the results and get a general idea. So we can see as we look through here, we have the general view of South Boston. We have Main Street, South Boston, Greens Folly, which was a big home there. I actually remember hearing my grandmother talk about Greens Folly. Somewhere in this general vicinity, she actually got to go and watch her very first airplane fly by. So I can click over there. I can look at a larger image of it if I wish. So this is a house that is there. So it gives me an idea of, what was in the area. I can know that my grandmother stood and saw this house, very similar. So this is a really nice, fun thing for me to see. It enriches the story of my grandmother. Does it tell me about my grandmother specifically? No, but it does help enrich the story because I remember her story about the field close to Green's Folly where she went to be able to go and see her very first airplane fly by. So that was a really fun way for me to get an idea. The other thing is my ancestors in Halifax County, Virginia, much like many of my ancestors here in the southeast of the U.S., were tobacco farmers. So I can take a look and see what it looked like, a truckload of tobacco going in, and learn a little bit and see a visual, appreciate the visual representation of what tobacco farming looked like for this area. Again, this is a small town. It is telling me there are 11 warehouses in that small town for this time period. I'm like, wow, that's a lot, because guys, South Boston was a very small town at the time. It still is. So this is the way that I explore the photo collections at the Library of Congress to get an idea of seeing what my ancestors saw, to get a perspective on their lives so that I can tell their story more fully and I can understand their story more fully. And then I can progress with my research further. One of the things I didn't mention already is the fact that to use and to search the Library of Congress's photographic collection, it's free. So this is a free tool that we can use as genealogy research. So if you're a frugal genealogy researcher like I am, be sure and hit that like button for me. And I know that you'll want me to create more frugal genealogy videos in the future. So back to using that Library of Congress photo collection for your genealogy research. So you might have an old family photograph at home, but you're really not sure about the people in that photograph. You're not really sure about the occasion. You might not even be sure what time period that particular photograph is from. So by searching the Library of Congress's website for photographs that were taken in that same time period or that same location, then we can start to get an idea of when our particular photograph may have been taken, or perhaps the location as to where it may have been taken. It helps us narrow down possibilities and potentially identify a time period for our photograph. Now, our sponsor of today's video, Related Faces, actually does this, but takes it a step further. They use facial recognition technology to identify similar faces of the photograph that you upload across the photographs in the entire Library of Congress collection, photo collection. So it's a fantastic way of kind of supercharging your search. So let me turn my camera around and let me show you how that actually works. All right, so now we're over here at Related Faces. So we're in looking at some of my photos there at Related Faces. And I wanted to kind of show you again how, as we talk about Library of Congress, I've showed you kind of how I might use some of their photographs to build out the stories, to understand my ancestors better. But I can also hopefully find some more information and maybe even be able to see if I can find matches for my ancestors within its database as well. So we can actually do that through Related Faces. And when you upload a photograph here, of course, they take the photograph, they take the image, and they will compare it to all of the other images in their database. So fingers crossed somebody else might have a photograph of my ancestors, then we would find a match and work together. But they can also compare it to the database at photograph collections at Library of Congress. Fingers crossed, you might find something there as well. So again, sometimes when we're trying to get our individual photographs identified, it's a long process. We have to be patient. We have to be diligent. We have to continue to check through. So I wanted to show that here. So again, we're back here in my Related Faces. If I click on this gentleman right here, now this is the original photograph here. I believe his name is Will Elliott. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm 99% sure. So I'm actually pretty cool about that. But one thing that I know about him is that he actually was in the military. He was as a career. He was in the military. And so this is his picture. I did date this picture back to around the 1910s, close to 1910, I believe it was, maybe 1911. So I have a pretty good idea about his photograph. But I am curious, would there be something else out there? Would he match with other family members as I try to build this tree out and to understand a little bit more about him? So here it's in Related Faces. So I come up here to the top right-hand corner where you see that pairings And if I click on that, all right, so you can take a look at my guy here. It's telling me I have a 95% resemblance here to this gentleman, though I can pretty much tell you that's not him, obviously. I can look at each one of these. Now I can come up here to the top and I can look at all the pairings. So I have 3 pages of pairings, or I can narrow it down. So maybe in this case, I really want to just see, is there anything at the Library of Congress? And these are the photographs that have a resemblance to him within the Library of Congress database. Now, the highest one here is 88%. So it's, fairly high likelihood, but I didn't feel like any of these was a good match. But if I click on this, it does tell me a little bit more about them. It will tell me, oops. So it'll come down here. It tells me the location. So it gives me a link out to that original photograph over at the Library of Congress. It tells me what year it was taken. I can tell you right away. It was taken in 1872. This would not be my guy. He would not have been a young man in 1872. And then this one's already named as well. So it tells me a little bit more about the photograph. Had they been a match, then I would obviously have a name and some dates for my guy. So this one is not a match. That's okay. At least I had something to look at. I can come down here. I can say, I'm going to decline that match, and it will take that one out. It shows me those are my declined. I can look at any of my new pairings that are out there and go, let's take a look at this one. Because I do know my guy was in the military, although this would have been Civil War. I know that this would not have been him. But you can see it's saying, we see some likeness. It was not for him, my guy. It would have been too early. So I will decline that one as well. Now, one of the pictures that you've seen in the past that I did with a previous video on was this gentleman right here. And I did discover that I actually had a second photograph of him in here, which would have been this one up here. But let's click on this and let's see if I have any new matchings or pairings that are out there, particularly looking at the Library of Congress. So it matches mine. So I'm going to click on Library of Congress. So I'm just looking at those from the Library of Congress and see, because I do believe this guy was in the military at some point. I had a kind of a questionable record that made me think maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Now, some of these have a higher length, but this one has a 90% resemblance rate. So we'll take a peek at that. This is a Library of Congress. It's interesting. I need to look at this one a little bit more. This one does tell me the year. So I think the year is actually a little early for him. This is Andrew Stokes, and he appears to be out of Alabama. Most likely this is not my guy. I do not believe he is my guy, but he definitely has some resemblance to him. So it might be somebody that could be related, or I might want to look at a little bit closer. So this would be a wonderful way to do that. So if I found that photo was a match with the Library of Congress, look at the wonderful amount of information that I could actually potentially be able to attach to my guy. Now, I actually do not think this is him, but I would want to maybe take a look at it a little bit closer, because he does have some similarities when I look at the shape of his eyebrows and the tilt of his head. So I might say, if I'm not sure, I might say I'm not really 100% sure if that is or is not, and I can mark it as uncertain and come back to review it later. So as you can see, the Library of Congress photos collection can be very helpful when it comes to genealogy research and really telling the full story of our ancestors. I really use a lot of their historical landscapes, their historical buildings, to get an idea of what it was my ancestors were seeing, and perhaps what types of homes they might have been living in, what types of terrain they might have been looking at, what type of farming equipment, because my ancestors were farmers, and what they were using. But then to take it further by using a tool like Related Faces that then helps me, that combines their technology with the Library of Congress and allows us to start getting names to the individuals in our own family photos, that's just icing on the cake. So again, having these two tools in my genealogy toolbox are an amazing resource. Now, I want to make sure that if you have old family photographs that you are using in your genealogy and family history research, that you are getting the most out of those photographs, and that you're pulling all of the stories and all of the clues to your ancestors from those. So go ahead now and watch this next video, Interpreting Family History Through Vintage Photographs.